Yes.
Any comments from Rick Grigg on the measuring wave heights?
Well, don't believe it. He exaggerates. He totally exaggerates. He's made these waves that were 30 feet, now 60 feet. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, I always figured Peter was the other way around. I always thought you exaggerated, but that's because you measured waves by the number of refrigerators you could stack on them, one on top of the other. No, but I am at the University of Hawaii, and I'm on that task force, you know, with the National Weather Service. And they press all of us at the university to come up with a standard measure of measuring wave heights, which is the face value, and that's the trough to the crest. It's kind of my thumb to my fingers, and I'm showing you with my hand. That's the height of the wave. They do that for safety reasons. Now, the Hawaiian scale is about half that size, and I can tell you a funny story how the Hawaiian scale got started, and in that interest of time, I'll keep it real short. But basically, the lifeguards invented the Hawaiian scale because they wanted to keep the surface up a secret. So when it was 10 feet, they'd say it was 5 feet. Or when it was 20 feet, they'd say it was, well, maybe it's 10. It was always about half as big as it really was. And that was the origin of the Hawaiian scale. And of course, those of us concerned with water safety, as I mentioned at the National Weather Service, we tried to go back to the face value, and you'll notice on the weather, like Guy Hoggy and the rest of them, they'll try to give the audience the actual face value of the waves. And then there's this other idiotic scheme of measuring waves from the back, which is totally absurd because you can't even see the back. So the whole problem of measuring waves is fraught with controversy and different opinion, and I'm only telling you a few stories of how those controversies got started. In my opinion, I'm not going to give it to you.
Well, you know, any of you that have had geometry, there's this 30-60 right triangle. Well, the leg that's opposite the 30-degree angle is half the hypotenuse, okay? And what they've done nowadays is to measure the hypotenuse. They think that they're measuring the wave, they're measuring the hypotenuse. So if you take a look at the surf reports in the morning and they say it's going to be 10 to 12, divide by 2, and it'll be very accurate. When they say a wave is 100 feet, divide by 2, it's 50 feet. They say it's 12, divide by 2, it's 6 feet. And I contend that that's face value stuff is all garbage. We never measured the back of the wave, we just simply measured the number of bodies that went up the face, and I think people like to embellish and make themselves look good by making the waves a lot bigger than they really are. I don't know, I'm going to ask Kimo what he thinks.
The kids are riding bigger waves than we did, you know. They have better equipment, they have more safety features, and I think they're better athletes. They're able to concentrate just on surfing because they're sponsored, and you know, it's when they get old, another group would come up and be better than them, but right now they're better than we were.
Oh, I hope they are. If they're not better than we are, you better get out of the way, because... Well, Gavin, what do you think?
I don't know about that. And in my whole opinion about it, I think actually you guys were the watermen, the real watermen of all the ages, because there was no leashes back then. You need to make conscious decisions as of what wave you're going to go on, what not. Nowadays we got leashes and these life jackets that, you know, inflate, these certain things that make you actually have a false sense of security, thinking that you're actually, you know, you can actually charge these 30-foot, 40-foot waves, when I really think that you needed to be a true waterman and know exactly how much your body could handle, not what your buddies are pushing you into or what your life jacket will get you into. And I truly think there are stronger athletes and maybe, you know, better times and better things, but in my mind, I think you guys were the forefathers and the paving of the path of where the real true guys really came from. So, thank you.
Thank you, Gavin. Actually, these guys just are, it's embarrassing. I mean, we're so obsolete that it's just unbelievable. But what are your thoughts, Ricky?
Well, I have to agree with you, Peter. We are obsolete. Yeah, and thank you. I think having that perspective of generations is a wonderful thing. And again, going back to Bud and thanking him for allowing us to do that, let me say mahalo to both Anna and Bud once again, and to Peter for narrating it. He's part of history as well. So thank you all.
Okay, I don't know how long we're going to be here, but are there any other questions? Yes.
A quick little, you gentlemen would mind just a small amount of history about Mr. Trent. He's a phenomenal individual. We never had a chance to want to ask about Buzzy and how you each felt about it in your lifetime.
Oh, Buzzy Trent was just a classic. I mean, Buzzy, I met Buzzy, I was in the, I think Corny and I, my twin brother and I were in the 4th grade and Buzzy was in the 5th grade. And we were playing football, the 4th graders were playing football, and Buzzy took the football away from us, and Corny got upset about it and went up to Buzzy and said, "Why did you take the football away from us?" And the end result was that they were going to meet in a lot after school to fight it out. And I just looked at my brother and I looked at Buzzy and I said, "My God, my poor brother, you know." I said, "I'm not having anything to do with this." I didn't want to show up or anything. But Buzzy and Buzzy Trent's best friend was this Kid Horn, who was just a classic guy too. And Buzzy and Kid were out there and Buzzy just clobbered Corny. Corny was down on the ground, Buzz come up, Buzzy down again. And then all of a sudden Buzzy says, I'm sorry, you know, and he kind of hugged Corny, and from that time on, Corny, Buzzy, Kid, and myself, and we just became best of friends. We were best of friends from that time on, and I have to say, Buzzy is one guy that if you're in the lineup with Buzzy, you don't surf, you just listen to Buzzy, you know, I mean, he just went on and on and on. He had more charisma than anybody can believe. And Ricky was as close to Buzzy as anybody at the end. And I have to say, and I always liked Buzzy. He would, you know, and he had kind of a stutter, and he was just a classic individual. And he'd get up there and he'd move his hands, he'd start talking, and all of a sudden we'd be listening to him, and he'd be talking away, and we'd be not paying any attention to the surf, and then all of a sudden he'd paddle a little over somewhere, and then he'd take off on this wave, and we'd all get caught inside with the swim.
Buzzy?
On Buzzy, I think the really significant thing to say is that Buzzy Trent and George Downing were the two first guys, really. They opened the door to big wave riding in Makaha. They were the first gurus. They taught all of us here tonight how to ride big waves. And I'd like to recognize Buzzy and George Downing as the two greatest big wave riders. They're certainly the first of that generation. Yeah, Buzzy was the lifeguard in front of my house in Santa Monica. If you can imagine how lucky I was, a little kid, snot-nosed kid, came running down the beach with my dog, and here's Buzzy Trent in the lifeguard station in front of my house. He says, "Hey kid, can I play with your dog?" That began a friendship that lasted right up until the end, and I was with him 2 days before he passed. And even then, Buzzy was tough as nails. He's as strong as they come. They say he fell once 30 feet off of a steel rig and landed halfway down and grabbed onto another steel girder and actually stopped his fall and lived to tell the story about it. But, you know, it was one story after another. He rode the biggest waves in Makaha. He was in Golden Gloves in California. He actually killed somebody. He hit him so hard. Buzzy Trent ran the 100-yard dash in 10 flat. He was one of the greatest athletes who ever lived. An unbelievable human being. One reason I think big wave riding came to be was through the influence of a great man like Buzzy Trent and of course George Downing. I put George Downing in the same category. Those two guys really deserve the credit. Thank you all.
Real quick, Buzzy Trent thing. Buzzy lifeguarded on the south beach of Santa Monica, one tower up from me, and Buzzy was always calling and saying, "You got to watch that guy in the front there, you know. Watch that guy. He might be in trouble, you know, and everything else." And all of a sudden, one day, I look out there, and there's this guy actually in front of Buzzy's tower, and he's drowning, and Buzzy's sleeping. So this was my chance, you know. So I call Buzzy up and I said, "Hey Buzzy, how you doing?" He says, "I'm doing all right, yeah, how you doing, Peter?" And I said, "Buzzy, by the way, Buzzy, is that guy in front of you there in trouble?" And the next thing I know, I see Buzzy running down the tower. Oh, I love that. That was really a highlight of my life.
You got anything to add for Buzzy?
I live in Wailua. Time for me to go home.